So my name's Steve Hilton. I am the resident here in Legacy Hall. I live here with my family, the faculty and residents, and I'm charged with bringing academics into the residence halls here at MSU Texas. So enough about me and enough about that. Again, thank you guys for coming to hear our distinguished speaker, Mr. Eric Koger. Eric has a Bachelor's of Science in Theater from Ball State University and an MFA from Florida State University, which he didn't know this a while ago, by the way. It's ranked the #1 university theater in the country by the Princeton Review. Eric is a chair and a professor of design here at MSU in the theater department. He's been a professor for 17 years at other places as well, 5 of those years being here with us. In addition to professing, he's incredibly active in a professional way. He does scenic and lighting design all over the United States, and some of his recent design work has earned him 6 nominations for Best Scenic Designer in Las Vegas. And with other accomplishments, including designs for upwards of over 300 productions, and serving as a production manager for Freeman Audiovisual, which, again, I did a little research, by the way, it's one of the most respected AV companies in the country, worldwide, which is quite an accomplishment, and he's a design manager. His work at MSU has been seen in many productions, including August, Osage County, Private Lives, In the Next Room, Summer and Smoke, Our Town, God of Hell, and he will be the scenic and lighting designer for this year's productions of The Mousetrap and Little Shop of Horrors. Please welcome Mr. Eric Koger.
That's pretty sweet. All right, so I'm completely astounded that this is even a thing that I'm doing. I was like, Steve called me and it's like, okay, you got it. And I was like, what? So I was doing some research and I was ecstatic at the whole possibility that this would be the last speech I ever gave, because that would mean I could retire. I know. So today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some math things. I hope everyone brought their calculators, and if you didn't, it's okay. All right? We're going to do some modulus of elasticity of Douglas fir from the southern tip of Wisconsin. What's going on? You guys aren't getting out your calculators or anything. All right, okay, wait. I actually luckily brought, you're going to love this, I luckily brought the formulas, so all you got to do is just write them down real quick. If you write those down real quick, then we'll be fine. Okay, just write down those formulas, and then we'll get going. When I first applied to MSU, I brought this slide with me. This is the first slide I brought on campus, which makes no sense. Or does it? What I was talking about when I brought this slide was the fact that we have background that is different than other people's background, that transform where we're going to be, going. It transforms the way we see things, the way we adapt to things. And so this actually had a little bit of a extra special thing for me. My mom used to think that I looked like Ralphie there. I don't know if it's true. Okay. So Mom would call me Ralphie, around the house and that kind of stuff. So this was kind of just a way for us to, reference me around Christmas. Come here, Ralphie, you're going to shoot your eye out. I was like, okay, Mom. So what I want to do is I want to back up and talk about some of those early things, those things that's transformed my creative approach. I want to talk about some of those things. So we're talking about in the beginning. Okay? This is Muncie, Indiana. Muncie, Indiana. Have any of you seen Close Encounters of the Third Kind? The scene where he's in the truck and it's starting to shake and the aliens are going to do something, that's on Nebo Road in Muncie, Indiana. That didn't really happen, by the way. That's not real. But this is Muncie. That's actually a theater I worked at. That's the Muncie Civic Theater. It's a community theater. Historical registry. Beautiful space. Oleo curtain. This is the Masonic Temple. It's real creepy inside, but it's cool. They ended up turning it into a theater space as well. The first floor is a gigantic, like a cafeteria space almost, but they turned it into a theater space. There's only about, I think there's 7 of these giant Paul Bunyans in the country. And we were lucky enough to have one. See, and this is why I think the way I do, is because of my Paul Bunyan. Now, just to add to it, I just do want to point out that those houses up there are literally 7 houses away from where I live in Muncie. That brick building in the back there, it actually had a grow house on top of it where they were growing marijuana. And when they busted the place for growing marijuana, they found that they had like thousands and thousands of dollars worth of stolen stuff inside the house, including an entire in-ground pool that had been deconstructed and put inside of the house. This is where I come from. Okay, so we're learning some things. This is what we're known for. Bob Ross. Bob Ross, he would actually do his show, The Joy of Painting, on the PBS station in Muncie. Do you guys know Garfield? Yes. Okay, that's Jim Davis. Jim Davis is very prolific there in town. I actually won some, I can't even remember what it was. It was some poster contest or something, and there's a picture of me standing next to Jim Davis. I couldn't find it. I looked for it. I couldn't find it. David Letterman, he got some terrible grades at Ball State, where I went. And he actually, they have an alley now named after David Letterman behind the bar I used to work at downtown Muncie. So that's pretty neat. Okay. Now this is definitely where I came from. Okay, this is where I came from. And there's a whole bunch of things here to take away. The Incredible Hulk. Yes. Absolutely, and you're going to see the Incredible Hulk. There's a theme. Okay. General Hospital. Hospital. I can never say it. My wife makes fun of me. Okay. I would have to race home as a small toddler. Race home so I could watch some Luke and Laura. I loved her. Green eggs and ham. That's very important. We'll come back to that. Does anybody know what that yellow guy is up there?
Time for timer.
Do you might know?
Timer.
Timer. Nope. Does anyone have a hankering for a hunk of cheese?
Yes.
Yeah, you know. Okay, good. All right. This is some good stuff. This was my favorite toy ever. And Wonder Woman was the second. They played all the time together. I had those sheets. I can remember sitting on those sheets at Christmas time, and my sister had a candy cane, and I don't know why they don't make these anymore, but this candy cane was this big around and about that long, club-like. And it felt as such. So. See, and this is why I keep myself in such good shape. You know, I was a huge Bruce Lee fan. And this poster, I actually took the picture of this poster. I found it. It was my poster from when I was a kid that I had stashed away in a drawer at the house. So I laid it out on the floor and I took a picture of it last night. That's my poster. That's that tape right there I put on there. You guys getting the feel for me?
Yeah.
Okay. Now we're getting into the good stuff. This is Dad's influence. This is Dad right here. He listened to a whole lot of that old metal. Cream, Grand Funk, Railroad, Black Oak, Arkansas, Black Sabbath, and I gained such a respect for all of that. But at the same time, my mom was listening to the Diana Ross and the Supremes, which I also dearly loved. So between the two of them, I'm getting a wide variety of tastes here. Okay, and this, if you really think about it, that's really shaping a person. That's really shaping a person. And there's some other stuff. Cheech and Chong. How excited was I when Cheech came to campus?
Oh, yeah. So excited.
Oh my God, I was so excited. Do we have comic book fans here? Yeah? How many comic books do you own? How many comic books? Who owns a lot of comic books? How many comic books do you own? A few hundred. How many you got?
About a dozen or so.
Oh, okay.
Around 70.
Okay. I have probably 14,000 comic books at home. Yep. Nerd. There's a lot of things going on here, though. As I was growing up, one of my favorites was Ghost Rider, and my mom knew that, and that'll come back up here in a minute. There's Rocket Raccoon. That's the first appearance of Rocket Raccoon. You guys remember these? These are pint glasses, like children's pint glasses. I don't know. Okay? And my mom would collect these. She had tons of these. She still has them. I bet she has 150. And what she would do is she would draw the characters off of the pint glasses. And this was my favorite one, apparently. And still to this day, when I go home, that's the only glass I'm allowed to drink out of. And if it's not out when I get there, I freak out. Like, where's Robin? And I don't even want to drink out of it, but apparently that's the only one I'm allowed to. And if I'm thirsty, there you go. So those are originals of my mom's. So she drew those for me for something, whatever it was. There's Ghost Rider. And it was right off those glasses, those pint glasses. Gee, I'm glad she dated him. 80 and 84. My mom actually, she was encouraging me to be an artist in several regards, and one of the other things that she was really encouraging of, as was my dad, was a love for horror movies. And my dad he's a little goofier, and he doesn't really like the gory stuff. He likes more of the Godzilla, the cheesier kind of stuff. So I'm getting a wide taste of the possibilities and what's out there and the flavors therein. So, I was starting to collect these. When I was doing the research, I was like, I had every one of these. I had all three of those. That's pretty cool. And I actually wish I still had them. And what's really funny is that for Christmas one year, I got my mom a velvet painting of Freddy Krueger that she still has in her room. It's awesome. Now, my Aunt Betty, my mom's sister, she would also draw. And so she would grab my Fangoria magazines or my Monster magazines and kind of scan through there, and she would find the pictures that she likes the best, and she would draw those. And so she left me these. Pretty neat. It's pretty neat. Speaking of Betty real quick, though it seems like she has some pretty fine dexterity, she actually poked herself in the eye with a mascara brush one time, and her eye turned bright red. I mean, it was bad news. And that wasn't even the worst thing that happened that week. She got her finger stuck in one of those car wash things, you know, where you put the quarters. She was like trying to get her quarter out because she didn't have enough, and she put her finger up in there to get it out, and it got stuck. And they had to come and cut it off the wall and take her to the hospital and lance her finger. That's the same week. That's pretty messed up. This is me in this time period. I'm that cute kid right there with the eye patch. Don't laugh at that. A lazy eye. Lazy eye. Yeah. So you have to wear the eye patch over the good eye so the bad one works harder. And, you know, I had to do that for like 2 years. Yeah, I'm going to start it back up again because it's pretty sweet. Let's work through the middle now. Kind of in the middle so you can get the feel for where we're at. There we go. What am I learning here? I'm learning that I don't need the visuals to be creative. The stories can come from anywhere. I just have to have the theory of, and then I can make it happen. And we had such great times doing this. And then this would turn into miniature play, you know, so we'd set up miniatures and do that whole thing. We would even paint miniatures. I did again a bunch of research. I had all of these. These are not mine. I had all of these. I painted them. This one, for instance, is only, it's about the size of, 1.5 quarters tall. That one over there is probably 5 inches tall. Pretty fun stuff. This will come back in the future. Okay, here we are. Here we are. We've got it to it. Step 1 of the question. There's some Iron Maiden in there. There's some Ozzy and Wasp. I had all of these as posters on my bedroom wall. Right next to the Fangoria, blood and guts and gore, and a few bikini-clad ladies. They don't tell my wife. Iron Maiden was the first concert that I ever went to. I went to see Iron Maiden and Megadeth. A friend of mine's parents bought me the tickets. It was, we had some sort of a holiday or a birthday or something going on, and so we went, and it was a magical situation. So Iron Maiden, this is Eddie. You guys know that? This character? This is Eddie. He's different all the time. He's changing it up. We'll talk about that more. That was my blacklight poster. Pretty sweet. I wish I still had that guy. Oh. This is a pretty interesting situation. This is why I've got such sweet style. I mean, look at those socks right there, right? Okay. That was my first skateboard, a Christian Hosoi. I had all of these shoes. And this is a fascinating story right here. These are actually skulls. It's hard to see them in this picture, but these are skulls that are kind of overlaying. I recently found those exact shoes in mint condition online somewhere and bought them. and now I own them. And they're from like 85 or whatever. So cool. So cool. But skateboarding was one of those things where I started really assessing space. And that started changing the way I actually look at space. Because I couldn't actually, I couldn't be in the backseat of my mom's car driving down the street and look at a parking lot the same way. I'm like, oh man, I could do that trick and I could do that trick. And by the way, just to tell you this one pretty awesome trick that I had. There's a parking block, and so I'm riding up riding up on it, and then just as you get right up there to it, you step off with the front leg so the skateboard starts to spin in midair. The tail of the skateboard hits the parking block and then starts spinning the other way. Of course, you're sailing over the top of it, and then you land it on a picnic table. That was me. That's because of my Bruce Lee-like reflexes. See? It pays to own a Bruce Lee poster. Okay, here we go. I got perfect A's. I got a perfect set of A's in ninth grade. My grandma said, if you get good grades, straight A's, I'll get you a haircut however you want. You guys ready? Okay, so here, let me tell you. I took this record in to the salon. Now, of course, I don't look like I have a lot of hair right now, but I do want to point out this is my real hairline from way back. This is not something it's not been fading away. It's nothing like that. I literally have had this old man haircut or hairline my entire life. Ask my mom. And I had at the time when I took this record in, I had hair down to here. It was the scraggliest hair ever. I mean, you could pull it into a ponytail about that big around. I mean, it's terrible, ugly. It's nasty. I wasn't going to get that. But I took it in, and the lady said, oh, that's a double perm. Do you guys know what a double perm is? You know what a double perm is? A double perm is where they set the perm once with big rolls. And then once it's set, they pull the big rolls and they put little tiny rolls in. And they set it again. And so when it was all said and done, and I was finished, it was real tight like Lionel Richie. It was awesome. It was like sucked. My hair literally went from here all the way up to above shoulder because it was so tight. Well, I figured out over the next couple of days if I picked at it, I could get Weird Al. So it got better. It did get better. It did get better over time. But eventually, I was like, I'm going to keep on picking at it. You ready? You ready for something delightful? Okay. There's my chin, by the way. Nice glasses, too. Okay, 89. Okay, here, I've got a couple more just to get you. It's righteous. Okay. You guys feeling where I'm at here? Okay. Now keep in mind, this is what I would consider to be the middle, right? I started reading rather than just playing the games and doing the figures with miniatures and such. I started actually reading. That's a thing that you do when you get adulty. I started getting into Hunter S. Thompson. And then it became it's a different world now. Because now it's not just about the potential of creativity. It's about who are you going to be? Are you going to stand up for this or that, or what is important? And do you have to have fear when standing up for these things? No, you don't. And that's what I learned here. I learned it, and this is a quote from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. This is a quote from Fear and Loathing because I believe in this concept, his approach, so wholeheartedly. And then if you've seen this movie, then you understand what the feel for this character is. And then if you haven't seen this movie, you need to, because this is also a portrayal of Hunter S. Thompson. This was one of my favorite movies when I was a kid. I didn't even know, and this is where it becomes really super interesting, is I was in love with this character before I even understood the character. And then later, when I gathered understanding, I had a new appreciation for the character. I revisited. Okay. Now we're into a situation. Have you ever been caving? No? You've been caving? Okay. Let's talk about what that even means. There's a hole in the ground, and you crawl into it, and just keep crawling. And you might have lights, right? That makes sense? Okay, so this is Buckner's in Bloomington, Indiana. And this was a big part of my life towards the end of undergrad and even the first couple of years after undergrad. This was a huge part of my life because I had one of the biggest revelations of my life, and that is, what is darkness? You don't know what darkness is unless you've done this. Well, I've closed my eyes before. That's not dark. You know, I was in a closet one time with my eyes closed. That's not dark. Steve. But no, this is Buckner's. And so you can see that's the mouth of the cave there. And then over here, this is down inside that mouth looking out. So you can see where we're at. This is actually the tunnel, the crawl in. Once you get down in the ground a little bit, there's a pretty good lengthy tunnel that looks like this. And then that's Keene's Grotto. It's the tightest of the tight. And I'll explain that in a minute. So here's the map. We would go in. Our goal was we would all travel down. We lived about 3 hours away. We would travel down right after work on Friday night, thinking that we were going to wait until morning and go in first thing in the morning and then spend all day caving. We were so excited by the time we got there. It's, 10 o'clock at night, and we decided we're going to go ahead and go in. And then we spend overnight in the cave. We literally are in there for 8 hours. If you take enough granola bars, it's all good. It's all good. So you come in up there at the natural, where's my button? You come in up here at the natural entrance, and then there's that crawl that I was saying, there's the entrance, there's that crawl. And then you get down to about here, and then you can choose to pick which direction you want to go, and there's lots of offshoots and such in different directions. I need a couple volunteers. 1, 2, and 3. Yep, come here. Okay. Let me see, is that right? Yep, that's right. Okay, so there were 4 of us caving. Come on up here. Okay. We had just come from a path this way. One of the fellas was a thin fella. And then one of the fellows was a little taller, meteor, be meteor. Okay? And then the other guy was just kind of real thin as well. And so this guy says to me, okay, let's duck down here real quick. Let's just come over here, fellas, because it's a real tight area now. Okay, so we're in this real tight area together. And this guy says, okay, we just came from this direction. And we have 2 paths ahead of us. We can go this way, and you're going to feel really good about yourself when you get to the other side. Or you can go this way, and it's really hard. And I'm like, what in the hell does that mean? Okay. And so I said, let's go through the one I'm going to feel good about myself on the other side. I don't know what that means, but it sounds exciting. Okay, so we start in. You guys can sit down now. I just wanted to visualize how tight that is. It was tight. Okay. We start in, and the skinny guy goes in front of me, and I got a little more meat because I'm Bruce Lee, and I'm crawling in right behind, and it's probably about 2 feet wide by about 18 inches tall when you first start. And you get in a little bit further, and the guys behind me aren't making very much noise, and we get in a little bit further and a little bit further, and eventually I don't hear the guys behind at all. And then the guy in front of me, he says, okay, pick which side you want your head on. I was like, what? And he says, well, you're not going to be able to turn your head after this point. Okay, so your head is how tall? 10 inches. 10 inches. So that means that the passage was 9 inches. You know how thick I am? I'm 9 inches thick. So I could feel my vertebrae scraping against the ceiling. My ribs are completely tight against the ground. Okay? And this is when black became a real thing for me. I really, really understood darkness because I was going to hyperventilate at any minute. So I took my headgear off, turned out my light. What do I need that for? I only have one direction. I'm not going anywhere fast. I'm just laying there and trying to calm down, breathe, because you can't breathe it. You can't go full breath. It's like, just like little partial breaths. And so I was like, okay, I got to be peaceful about this, very zen, either calm down or die. And so I eventually calmed down enough. And Dave, the guy in front of me, I see him, he's like, okay, we're coming to the opening. And I see him kind of disappear. And then I come out, and I see him take off running, because it opens into a big cavern. I see him take off running to the other side of the cavern, because he thought I was going to beat him up. And I got out, and I felt so good, because I conquered it, right? It was a magnificent moment. It was a thing that we shared. It was a bonding situation. Awesome. Here I am. That's me, right? Oh, damn it. There I am right there. Right there. Right there. It was so muddy down there. It's like clay. And so your belt, we use fanny packs to carry all of our gear, some of our gear in. And the belt buckles were picking up the clay. You have to eventually just take the belts off so you can just throw those ahead of you too. It's exciting. Wouldn't that be great? Was that your experience there, Steve?
I caved a lot when I was in college. I have a degree in geology.
Oh, yeah.
So yes.
You've heard of it then. Okay.
Spelunking.
Spelunking. Okay. Now we're getting to the adulting part. You guys seen this movie? What happens in this movie? What happens? Who knows? Yeah. Yeah.
janitor turns out to be a super math genius, so a lot more
Right. The struggle that the janitor was having is the fact that he is blue collar. And he just happens to have more available to him than just blue collar. So he had the potential to do more. And this movie changed my life. Because I was perfectly fine being an electrician. Perfectly fine. And that could have been my path. I made the decision. There were two options. I could either be a residential electrician or go to grad school. I went to grad school. But boy, I could have just been hanging with my team, having all the fun, just doing Muncie things, right? But I chose to make a different choice. I chose to, someone flushed the toilet. Nice. I chose to try something else. I gave up all that I had to move forward. That's hard to do. But that was the first time I did it. And then I started doing it all the time. Now I embrace it. It's change. I love moving. That's my favorite thing in the whole world to do. I don't want to pack the stuff in and out of a truck, but it's the heavy stuff anyway. But I love putting the stuff in a room. I love spatial layout. That's my favorite thing in the whole world. And by moving, I got to leave Indiana. That's about what Indiana looks like, and that's the way I remember it. It's gray. During the winter, the snow would get gray, the road would be gray, the sky would be gray, and it's all the same shade of gray. Everything, it becomes impossible to know where you're going. You're just like driving into nothingness. It's a gray nothingness. I left all of that behind for, Tallahassee. That was a lot better. That looks a lot different. And that was when I first started realizing what skies look like and how they differed from one region of the country to another. I moved from there up to, I was in the New England area for a long time. That looks different. Trees look different. I was in Virginia for 10 years. Trees in Virginia are 80 feet tall. I didn't even know that was a thing. I was like, how tall are these trees, I wonder? And I had trees in my yard, and I'm like, man, they look really tall. I bet they're like 40 feet tall. 80 feet tall. It's like, this is amazing. Trees in Tallahassee were really big, and they had the big bendy arms, and there's lots of moss hanging off of them. So cool. Old trees. So cool. This is here. This is Texas. So exciting, right? And then the sunsets in Las Vegas. I lived there for a while. The sunsets in Las Vegas are crazy. One, they're really early because you get a false sunset. It's not the sun setting at the horizon. It's the sun setting behind the mountains. You're in a valley. There's mountains all the way around. So it starts earlier. It gets dark earlier. It eclipses, behind a mountain. So now we're in Texas. There's my daughter. That's Kitty. And we're back to gaming. I went full circle. I'm back to that again. What? Now I'm teaching her. Here's a game that I started playing. If anyone hasn't played this, it's really fun. It's a alternate endings World War II. You can actually pick one of the factions of the war, and then you add in the functions of the supernatural that may or may not have been part of that thing. So with that comes painting of miniatures. And then these are other miniatures. And I painted all of these. These are more recent paints. These are better paints than I did before. Better and better. These skills are obviously something I use right now in my career. Who knows who those people are? Ibsen? Yeah, and? Beckett. Yeah. A couple of my favorite playwrights. And this was the beginning and end of where I began, really understanding. And then when I finally grasped understanding of theater structure, Beckett was the first thing that I did. I did an in-game. I was a scenic and lighting designer for in-game. And it was a nightmare. I had no idea what I was doing. And I look back upon it, and it was garbage, absolute terrible. But, I just didn't get it. It was a lot for a person of my age at that time. And then Ibsen. I didn't get that until I didn't understand anything that Ibsen was producing until I was, maybe 10 years ago. So it took me 20 plus years to understand what Ibsen was about. So these two guys are kind of, I feel like I'm somewhere in there. I got the hair and the beard or something, right? I went to Las Vegas. When you go to Las Vegas, there's a whole bunch of things that you experience. You can see all of the big shows, and when you see the big shows, you start realizing that money doesn't matter, and you can do anything. Now, that doesn't mean that all of us have that problem or lack of problem, but that is a possibility. You can get on doing some of these things. This is the Neon Museum. So cool. I have been through this place so many times because it's just inspiring, right? The architecture, just seeing the architecture. And people, once you're there for a long time, it becomes kind of background. Not for me. It does not become background. It is something that I embrace every single time I see it. I drive down the strip every time I'm there because I want to see what's different. And this is the Fremont experience. They have these LED canopies over top. It's really fascinating. You can walk down the street there and you can hear a band playing. And one time I was walking down the street and I was like, is that Poison? And that band, Poison? And I walked up and I turned the corner and I'm like, it is Poison playing on the street. It was the weirdest thing, right? I learned stuff like this. I was honing technical skills in Vegas, stuff that I had no access to this stuff prior to living in Vegas. It just gets more and more complex. Video screens, video mixers, these giant 12K Barco projectors. I mean, this is high-end, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of gear that I'm able to touch and work with. Setting up entire venues. I was in charge of Mandalay Bay for one of the biggest conferences that they do. It's their big tech conference. And I still got the shoe game. I just want to point that out. So I've been sculpted by a whole bunch of things. To what end? I know about color. Look at this. Look what I've learned about color. This is from comic books, right? You can, like the groupings of colors is just obvious. Like the Incredible Hulk, green and purple. The Joker, green and purple. The Riddler, green and purple. All my favorites are green and purple. This is a design that I did for Rock of Ages over at back door. And so this is where I'm utilizing some of those color skills. Painted that floor, using this kind of a thing. And nothing is more zen than painting, right? You can just kind of just relax. Watercolor. Learn a little bit of that. Cherry Orchard. Summer and Smoke. How about contrast? Watch this, watch this, watch this. That's pretty neat. Let's watch that again. Let's see, here we go. Contrast. That's good. That's The Exonerated. Great play if you haven't read it. Caucasian Chalk Circle. This was a model. That's all metal. Texture. Texture is going to be an aspect that I utilize a lot. Color means a lot to a lot of people, and that's usually the first thing that you learn. Texture means more to me. That's a lot of brick. Isn't that a pretty picture? Pencil sketches, and then add a little watercolor on top of it. Again, it's about the texture. This was for getting out. Beauty Queen of Lenan. This was in Vegas. This one was one of them that won me a nomination for Best Scenic Design. Those are three-dimensional bricks that I painted. Looks pretty good, huh? I learned this from comic books and horror movies and caving. Iron Maiden. It's hard to see what that is, but that's actually the first show that I did in Vegas once I got a job here. So it was exciting going back and doing the first show in a space that had never been a theater space prior. This is interesting. This is part of that, and again, this is texture. So the space needed to feel as if it were a found space. This floor was the found floor. This is the found orange line. That's the found crack. I did everything else. Looks pretty good. That's not too bad right there. And those look like some really, really used doors. August Osage here. Yeah, there's a lot to that one. That was the first show I did here. And every time I just kept going to Elizabeth, I was like, can I get another $5? There's two more pictures from it. There's Kitty on the set again. She's always lounging. Form. Okay, this was Rocky Horror that I did over at Backdoor a couple years ago. I painted all of these big signs. Kaylor painted a couple. Which ones did you paint, Kaylor? You painted the Frankenstein? Cool. Yeah. Private Lives. That was a beautiful set. Look at this paint treatment. Real interesting stuff. This was the Realistic Joneses done at College of Southern Nevada, but it was when I was working here and I was commissioned by a Public Fit, the professional group that I work for in Vegas, to design this show in another space that I had already worked in previously in Vegas. So that was really kind of fun. It's like so convoluted. Lots of projection. The ground looks like, what? Oh, look at that. I'm going to say that real quick. I'll come back to that in a minute. The ground looks like a shadow in the shape, or it's in the shape of a shadow of the house, but it's AstroTurf. It's neat. Look, and I even use design skills and stuff like making this awesome gluten-free dessert for my lovely wife. That's Kelly. Line. This is for La Boheme. Complete Female Stage Beauty. This is a show I did at a school I taught at back in Las Vegas. Oh, there's Kitty again on the damn side. It's hard to see, but there's none of this paneling back here is real. It's all painted. There it is. There you can see that it's not, well, you can't see that it's not real, but you can see that that paneling is all fake. That's all painted. Scale. Look how big that piece of scenery is. This is for the rivals. You can see how big that piece of scenery is right down here. There's a picture of me and Burt Reynolds standing right in front of that. He's a short fella too. He's like this. And plastic. He looks like straight up plastic. Oh, you see how big that tassel is? Watch this. This is neat. Let me see. You have to make this play. Let's see. How do I do that? Is it going to play? I guess I can't get it to play. It's all right. That was a video. I was going to show you a video. Big river at back door. Again, lots of different things going on here. Texture, scale. Look at that moon made of slats of wood. And all of these renderings that I'm doing, they're all in 3D, which is a new, I'm moving towards that because that's easier than building models by hand. So I was doing it by hand, and then I started shifting because this is cheaper and faster, and I can get a product to a director so much quicker. So, what do Iron Maiden, Hunter S. Thompson, and Matt Damon have in common? Look at this. Iron Maiden's freedom of artistic exploration, right? Freedom of thought. Freedom of self. Those are all me for sure. They're all inspiration. There's my inspiration. Look at that. That's why I do this. Right? Green eggs and ham. You don't know if you don't try. You got to try. You got to try. Always try. That's what all my classes are. Just try. Thank you.
time for questions. If you have questions.
Where was the Burt Reynolds photo?
I couldn't find it. I looked and looked. I have.
Comic books, but you didn't find the Burt Reynolds?
I had a hard drive die on me a while back, and I never could figure out what was on it. I'm pretty sure Burt Reynolds was on it.
Photoshop, give me a little bit of time, I'll help you out.
I'll do that.
What was the video of?
The video was Rivals, but what I had done was I built a paper model of the set, and it was just flat. And then I just moved it around and just took a picture of each one, and so you could actually see it moving from one scene to the next. And that's how I expressed it to the director. Anybody else? No? Yeah?
So when did you make the big chop?
The big chop of my hair? When I graduated undergrad, I decided to chop it completely off because I took a job as a technical director at a place, and I decided that that would be the best way to gain the respect that I felt that I needed and or deserved. Anything else? No? Yeah?
How many pairs of shoes do you own?
That's a good question. Probably 40. I bet I have 30 pair of Vans.
Yeah.
I buy them in bulk because if I find a pair, if it's got a real sweet style to it, then I'll buy like 3 of the same thing, put 2 of them back, and then like I have a pair of the bamboo ones that I was wearing 2 years ago that I've been hanging on to. I'm going to hang on to them for like 2 more years, and then I'm going to whip them out, and they're going to be amazing.
Are the other 10 pair all Stacy Adams?
I do have a lot of wingtips. A lot of wingtips, and then, of course, my Docs.
Yeah.
What else? Thank you all for coming.